to this course. This course is Quant Trading Accelerator. The reason it's called an accelerator is because we're going to be learning from zero extremely fast, just like how these tech startup accelerators work. And the key principle behind it is that we're going to be learning by building. Just like a guitarist who learns how to play guitar, they learn by playing the instrument, and we're going to do the same. We're going to be learning by building. The only prerequisites for this is just intellectual curiosity. So it doesn't matter if you don't have any math or programming experience. The main key prerequisite is just curiosity. So you're very curious how things work. So we're now going to discuss what is quant trading. Quant trading, it differs from other forms of trading because it's based on a model. The model takes an input, and it makes a prediction, which is a prediction into the future. We also call it a forecast. And then that prediction is then passed into a strategy, and that strategy converts the prediction into orders. And then the orders are then executed onto a broker platform or an exchange. So the course overview, there's like 4 key objectives. So you're going to be able to want you to develop research skills and be able to build and test your own trading ideas and to quantify them. And you're going to have the ability to develop and backtest your own models and strategies. And then the fourth one is that we can put it all together. We can code it all together and automate them. So because we're learning by building, so we're going to be building several things together. The first one is a data analysis library. And you may be wondering, why are we doing this when there's like pandas? And the key reason for this is that we can fully understand what pandas is doing behind the scenes while learning programming and also mathematics. So it's a really good exercise for understanding to become more proficient with pandas or polars. So once we've built that, we'll have quite a good level of programming and maths that will then go into the research library, which will allow us to test our ideas and to create models. And once we've built our library, we'll have a good understanding of, let's say, machine learning and econometrics. That we can build and backtest our machine learning model. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to build a model, and then we're going to build a strategy based on that model. There are like 4 key skills to this, which is the programming and mathematics, which is, say, the foundation, which we'll be doing for the first 2 projects. And then the econometrics and machine learning. And I'd say if you have a good understanding of econometrics and machine learning, then you'll be dangerous. The course logistics, we're going to be using Google Colab. So this is Google Colab, and the reason for this is that you just need to open up a web browser. You don't need to store anything locally. So you can have like 2 tabs, one this Colab notebook, and then the video. And the videos are going to be bite-sized, so they're roughly around 20 minutes each. So this allows you to not allocate a huge amount of time for each video. And the learning is going to be incremental and just in time. So I'm not going to teach you every part, the kitchen sink of mathematics and Python. That we're just going to learn just enough that we can build upon, and we're going to build incrementally. So, and another key thing is don't skip the videos, because each video builds upon the other. So don't decide, okay, go straight to the model part or straight to the strategy part, because you're going to be built upon the other videos. And the exercises, please do them. If you're not actually doing the exercises, you're not building, then you're not learning, essentially. And especially if you're going to use, I don't mind you using, say, like ChatGPT, as long as, for example, if it's to debug a solution. But if it's just to generate the code, you're not going to learn anything. And also, it's really, really important that you comment. So, for example, if something's not clear to you, please let me know in the comments, because there may be other people that it's not clear for, and then I know that I need to either remake the video or edit it. So that's the course overview out the way. So now we can start by the actual first lesson, which is we're going to be doing is part one is going to be variables. So just before I go into variables, I just want to show you this notebook, what it actually does. So for example, I've just got this Python code here, just to add some numbers. And you can see when I can run the number by either clicking on this button or by doing Shift Enter. And you see here, it generates the output. So it runs the code, and if there's any output, it displays it. So now we can actually start to create variables. And to create a variable, you have to give it a meaningful name. So for example, if I want to represent a price, I say price equals, and say what the value it should equal. So I'm saying here that the price should equal, say, $10. And this is assigned it. And if I want to print out the value of it, I can do so like this. And if I want to, for example, update it to say, for example, that it's going to go up by, it's gone up by 50 cents, then I can do this. So then, and essentially what it's doing is saying the price equals the current price, which is 10, then plus 0.5. So now if we print it out, it's $10.50. And we can also create new variables based on existing variables. So for example, if we want to put, say, the old price equals price minus 0.5, we can do this. And then if I look at the price now, it's 10. And essentially what it's doing is this. So it's saying that the old price equals, and say what the current price is 10.5. So that's what it evaluates to. And then it's 0.5. And that's essentially what it's doing. I'm just going to print out our price again. So it's like $10 here. And there's a really key important lesson is this memory referencing. Like, so for example, we have price equals $10. And we're going to say that the new price, just say, is $10 as well. Okay, and we're going to update price and to say that it's now $11. So I'm going to run this, and now I'm going to print out what the value of new price, and I want you to have a think if it's going to be $11 or $10. So let's run it, and you can see here that it's $10 and it's not 11. So the key reason for this is that when I updated, so for example here, I updated price. This is a new memory allocation, so it's a new, so you can think of this as one memory allocation, right, to store this number. And I'm now saying that price has a new memory allocated for this number here. So it's only updated it for price here, like at this time. So it's not pointing to the same memory. If it was pointing to the same piece of memory, then it would be this would be 11. And we're going to see, for example, in later videos where we do it with arrays, that it actually works, but not with numbers. So now we look at price. You can see it's 11. So don't worry if this is not super clear for you at the moment, but just in future videos and when you actually start building, that this will become more intuitive and more understandable. But it's just a very important detail to discuss. And so now what we're going to do is look into numbers, because that's like the fundamental data type. Numbers. Okay, so let's have a look at the data. So there's this function in Python that allows you to say what's the data type for a variable. So I'm going to just show you that what price data type is. So this is a float, and this is essentially what we call represents a real valued number. So this can be whole numbers, and it can also be like decimal point numbers. And for example, there's floats, but there's also another data type to represent numbers, which is called an integer, and this represents whole numbers. So for example, number of trades, the number of trades can never be like 0.1 or 0.2. It's always just whole numbers. So for example, if we make 100 trades and we print this out, so it's 100, and we have a look at the data type for it, you can see it's an integer. And we can also, for example, we can convert number of trades. So for example, we can do this. We can convert it from an integer to a float. So if we pass in, if I do number of trades, and then if we look at the type of number of trades, you can see it's now a float. And if we actually just print out, it's still 100, but you now got this 0.0, and this typically indicates that it's a float. So now what we're going to do is, I will just want to show you the other way around. So for example, we can convert a float into an integer, but there's a key important detail here. We lose the decimal places here, so that's just got to be very careful when you're converting from a float to an int. In some use cases, you actually want to do this, and then you can do it the opposite way around, which we just shown, which is, for example, take an integer and convert it into a float. And also, what we can do is convert, say, a string, which we're going to discuss later in the video, is a string. So this is a string, and it can be typical that maybe the data that you get, let's say from a CSV file or from an API, the price comes as a string that you need to convert. So this is like very typical. So for example, here it's converted it from a string into floats. And now what we just need to discuss is arithmetic. So with arithmetic, let's just write some. So for example, here, it's that these are called operators, and some operators have higher precedence than others. So for example, multiply has a higher precedence than the add operation. So it doesn't evaluate from left to right, it evaluates which operator has higher precedence. So essentially, it evaluates it like this, which is 3 plus 9. That's essentially because it evaluates this multiplication first, and then, so you can see here, that's essentially what it's doing. However, if you want to force it to do, let's say, calculate this part first, then you would need to put parentheses. So for example here, 3 plus 3, and we're going to multiply it by 3, and you can see it's a totally different number, and we're forcing it to evaluate the addition before the multiplication. And now essentially what this is doing is now saying is doing this. It's 6 times 3. And with arithmetic as well, that you may want to, you can do arithmetic on a variable. So not just, these are called like literals or values. We can also do it with variables. So for example, we can say, like, if we want to multiply it by, say, like, show how much it increases by 5% of the current price, then we can do this, right? And if we, for example, if we want to show like that it decreased by, let's say, 10%, then we can do something like this. So price 1, and then minus, let's say, 10%. Okay. So that's the arithmetic, and that's quite important, because most beginners might think that it just evaluates from left to right, and it doesn't. And now we're going to discuss strings. So numbers are really important, but strings are also really important, especially because we're going to be loading like data from like a CSV file, and that's going to come in as strings. So you have to be very competent in working with strings. So here we go. So let's say we have a symbol, and a symbol is like a unique identifier for a trading instrument. So for example, this is for Google, right? And let's just, and now if we print out the variable, you can see that it's a string. And just to confirm, we can do this. We can say type of symbol, and you can see it's string. str is just short for string. And it was a very common operation is to add what's called a suffix, which is, so when you add two strings together, it's called string concatenation. And what we're going to do is add what's called a suffix. And this is very common, like when we're working with data. It's like, for example, we want to create a column, and let's say a column is like the prices of Google. So we can add it at the front or at the end. So for example, here, I'm going to just add it to the end, which is called a suffix. And if we just print it out now, we can see that we've got this Google underscore price. However, we could do it at the beginning as well. So for example, if we do this, so for example, column, this is the prefix version, is that we do price underscore symbol. So you can see now it's prefix added, so it's at the beginning. And also what we can do is do the following. Is we can replace, for example, what's very common is, like, for example, your preference may not be what's called underscores. Maybe you want to use a dash instead. So you can do this. So for example, what we're going to say is we're going to replace all the underscores and replace it with dashes. And if we evaluate this, you can see here that the underscore has been replaced with a dash. However, a key detail here is it hasn't affected the underlying variable. So it hasn't done what's called in place. It's generated a new string. So for example, if we actually want to save it, then we need to update the variable. So that's what we're going to do now. So, and the key reason for this is because a lot of the operations on a string is what's called immutable. So the data doesn't change. It creates a new memory allocation, like a new string essentially. So this probably be a bit more clear once we do this. So exactly the same code. And now, if we look at you can see now it's changed. So previously it was an underscore, and now it's a dash. And another very common operation with strings is to split the string. So for example, we can do this. We can split it. And we're going to split it by the dash. And essentially what it does is it creates an array. And we're going to discuss array in the next video, but just it's a brief introduction to an array. And we may want to save this. So for example, we're going to do tokens equals this. Okay. So we're going to save the array. And I'm just going to print out. So you can see now tokens is now an array. And to access the individual elements of the array, so for example, if we want to get the first element, we can do this. You can see it's price, and then the second token, is Google. So you can see that it's split it into an array. And essentially, the algorithm behind it is essentially like doing this. It's like finding out what the index is, and we're going to denote the index by I. Okay, and then if we print out I, it's saying that it's found it at position 5. Okay, so and essentially what it will do is it will do what's called a sub slice. So it'll find it will do this. So if I put I here, the first token, as you see, is price, and then that is going to get the next token, but it's not going to start from I, because that's the exact position where the hyphen is. So it wants to at the next position. So this is why we do a +1, and essentially it's going to say, okay, this is called what's a slice. I think Python calls it a slice. And now we're going to slice it to show the string the next token. So for example here, and this is essentially saying just start from here, but then go to the end of the array. So as you can see now, we've got our price and our token. So this is roughly the code how it's done it. And so that's now I want to just show you formatting strings. So for example, our price at the moment is $11, and I'm going to do this. I want to just print out as a string like the symbol. Let's say this is Google, right? Price is, and I'm going to concatenate. So this is, remember the string concatenation, the price. But there's an error here because if you read the error, you can see here, so you can only concatenate string and not float to string. So we have to convert the float into a string. So we can do it like this. I'm just going to uncomment again, because the reason why I'm doing this is because if we click on run all, it's going to fail here and not run the code afterwards. So I'm just going to uncomment it. We can do this. So now we can do symbol plus price is, and then we're going to convert, we'll explicitly convert it into a string. So you see here that this is what it said that the price is, but there's a much cleaner way to do this, and this is what's called like a formatted string. So if you put an F before the string, and now if we can do this, so price is, so this essentially formats the string, and this takes care of, like, for example, if the price is not string, it automatically formats it into a string, and it's identical. There's no right or wrong answer, but my preference is always just use formatted. So that's the variables and just some basic data types, the most fundamental data types that we need to know. So now we're going to go into exercises. So we're going to do the first exercise is the following. So exercise 1 is to calculate price delta, and the price delta is just the change in the price. So what we're going to do is just get some prices. So the price let's say the price today is 100, okay, and the price yesterday is 90, okay, and I want you to calculate how much it's moved by. Okay, so that's we're going to put the price. So I want you to update this variable, and you're going to do the calculation here. Oh, okay, so your code is going to go here. Okay, and then if you got it correctly, your price delta should equal 10. At the moment, it's going to, so this is what's called a Boolean. So a Boolean can either be true or false. So if your code, if you've done the calculation correctly, then it should equal 10, and this should be true. So only continue to the next exercise until this is satisfied as true. Then the next exercise 2 is calculate total profit and loss. We denote it as P&L for short. I'll put P&L here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is going to explicitly say some trades and store them, the performance of a trade, and store them as variables. Okay, so let's say minus 2.0 trade 3 P&L equals 3.0. Okay, and then trade 4, let's say 8.5. Okay, and then the total P&L, which is what we want to, that I want you to update, is this one. Okay, so your code, again, your code is going to go here, and then I want, so if you've done the calculation correctly, then the total P&L should be 10.7. okay, and at the moment this is 0 because that's my default value that I've set. So so that's the second exercise. And now the final exercise, which is a bit trickier but not impossible, is this, which is we're going to parse the data, and this is very common. You're going to get data from an API that may not be in a well-structured format, and you have to what's called parse, which is like essentially doing string processing. So for example, let's say we've downloaded some data, and let's say it comes as a string. So for example, this is Apple, and the price is 262.82. Okay, and I want you to extract from this the symbol, and we're going to just initialize it as empty, an empty string, and then the price. And we're just going to initialize this as a default value of 0.0. Okay, and your code to parse is going to go here. And to do this, if you look at the previous examples, you should work out how to do it. So just look at the section on converting numbers, strings to numbers, and then how to tokenize. So that's your code, and then the tests that you need, there's going to be two tests. The first one is that the symbol should equal Apple. Okay, so at the moment it equals false, and then the price equals 262.82. Okay, and then that's also false. So that's the exercises, and only continue to the next exercise once these tests are equal true. And that's the end of the video. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next one. This course is free thanks to my Patreon supporters Doggett and Manic Sonny. If you're getting value from this series and want to help me create more, consider joining them on Patreon.